This episode is brought to you by Indie Film Hustle TV, the world's first streaming service dedicated to filmmakers, screenwriters, and content creators. Learn more at indiefilmhustle.tv. I'd like to welcome to the show Stephen Beres. How are you doing, Stephen?
I'm doing very well, Alex. Thank you for having me. I'm a big fan of the show. So happy to join you. This is a big deal.
Thank you, man. I truly appreciate that. Thank you for the kind words. You have one of those wonderful podcasting voices. You have that voice. Like when you popped up on Skype, I was like, that voice. I was like, wow. And it was also the mic is helping and all that stuff. But you have that voice. It's very good.
I have a curated. Well, and as we were talking to you before we started recording, I do have a podcast about vintage Land Rovers, which I know huge crossover to the indie film market.
Obviously.
Like old cars that don't work. Check out the Underpowered Hour, our podcast, and and thanks for having me. And I do appreciate it, and genuinely, I don't just say that. I genuinely am a fan of the show. I love the people that you've had on, fellow Canadians like Oliver Stone. So it's nice that I'm in that echelon. I'm sure people will be like, oh well, this makes total sense from Jason Blum to Steve. This makes it natural.
Everybody's been asking, when is Steve coming on the show?
That's right. I guarantee it. Mostly old Land Rover owners, but that's fine.
We'll take it.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk a bit about post today. Everyone who's listened to me on the show knows that I've been in the post business for 25 years before I retired from post a few years ago. And I love saying that out loud.
Yeah.
Because
I
escaped post. I love post on my own stuff, and I still do a post on my own stuff. Still color grade, to edit, post supervise, all that stuff on my own stuff. But the client stuff, and we'll talk about your history with clients.
Post would be great if it wasn't for the client, of which, for the most part, that is what I am now. So I know firsthand I'm awful.
Oh, it's terrible. We'll get into that. But first one, how did you get started in the business?
Well, I started back, and I'm from Canada. I'm from Calgary, Alberta, actually, from a little town called.
This is why you're so nice. That's
right. That's why I'm so nice. If you stop for gas on your way up to Banff to the national park, you've been through Canmore. That's where the gas station is. So I came from Canada. I worked in the film industry there, such as it was back in the 90s. There was a lot of this sort of early Canadian production television shows, amazing television shows like Viper, the series, sort of like Knight Rider, but with a Viper. Yeah, transforming Viper. That was a cool one. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, the series. Which is
a classic. It's on Disney. It's on Disney Plus right now.
Oh yeah, it is a cinematic marvel and masterpiece. I did an under 21 wrestling show called MattRats.com because at that time everything had to have .com in the name, which was the nephews and sometimes sons, occasionally daughters of famous wrestlers doing sort of a wrestling reality show, which was interesting. Well before its time. Now things like the WWE has a reality show product. I think it's actually pretty successful. We were well before its time. This is in the 90s. This is well before that. So anyway, I had been doing that for a while, and I actually hooked up with the fine people at Apple Computer at the time, right around the time they'd acquired a product called Final Cut from Macromedia, and we're looking to sort of launch into the professional market so far as it was at that time for digital video creation. Firewire had just come out. When was the last time you heard the name Firewire, hey? Yeah,
I still got Firewire 800s here, man, connected to my Thunderbolt.
Can't go. Yeah, you got like a Thunderbolt to a new Thunderbolt to a USB-C to it's like 9 little adapters. 3 of them aren't made anymore. If any of that stops working, I know. So we were the studio that was I was working at the time were very involved with Apple in sort of launching some early work in Canada around that. I went to sort of do what's called a key client support representative gig for a little while, which is helping people kind of understand this new Final Cut, how to get it worked into their studios, how to cut movies on it, how to cut TV shows. And after a while of doing that, I made the decision to say, listen, I need 2 things. I'd like to be in the United States, which for a Canadian is a pretty, at that time, certainly now it's not really the case, but at that time it was the the only way to really seriously get into a different level of film production. And I'd like to go to film school. I'd like to learn more about the industry than just the little kind of piece that I know about. I'd love to learn more about cameras, which is actually a huge part of my job now, funny enough. I'd like to get on the really big post kit that like we just don't have in Calgary, Alberta. We don't have there was not an inferno in the city.
A flame.
Somebody had a smoke. One place had a smoke.
Kind of a thing, I remember the flame. I remember the flame was like all the rage back in the day.
I was a smoke and combustion demo artist for a little while while my wife was going to school in Montreal. Man, like that was a different time when you had like a small refrigerator of computer. It
was $1 million. It was $1 million.
Absolutely, it was $1 million, and it was like it was the coolest thing in the world. But like 8 people had it, and 2 people knew how to use it.
And it was outputting standard def.
Standard def but in real time. You could do text with rippling effects and things in real time.
And comping and all this.
Oh my God.
I worked in I worked at a commercial house in the 90s, and they were one of the two. There was only 2 production companies in the country who owned their own flame, and they paid $1 million for it. Out of pocket, and they were just doing spots for like budget rent a car and stuff. But there was all this 3D stuff and the transitions. It was done real time, and I'm just thinking back. It was like that was 720, which now could be outputted on your phone.
Oh, and even then, you'd say, like, if you're getting 720 on YouTube, you're like, what's wrong with my internet? You're like you gotta shake this thing. This looks like shit.
Now 720p, 7 standard defs is not 720p.
Yeah, 720 line pairs. Yeah, like that was like not a great, was not a great time for us. The DV era, if you will, was not a great time.
It was a transition. It was a transition. And one of the other things that we have in common is we both went to Full Sail. I mean, at the time it was called Full Sail Center for the Recording Arts when I went. Now it's just called Full Sail because they actually, I think there is a giant vault where you could actually swim like Scrooge McDuck in the gold coins. Over at Full Sail now because they have so much money.
It has since we were there. So I was there in the late, few years after you. Right?
Yeah.
And same thing in the film program, which I just learned now, which is amazing that we have that in common. How cool is that? Yeah. And that, when I went there again, very small film program. I remember shooting my film in a department store that had gone out of business or something. They didn't renew the lease. Right. Full Sail owned the land. And they're like, sure, you can shoot your movie in there, no problem. So,
that's where they have the sound stages and stuff now. Yeah, that whole area back there is where I used to go to class there when it was just, they only owned like one store. They didn't own the whole thing. They just owned one store.
Yeah, and they slowly sort of
took over.
Now, of course, my God, 20 years later, there is acres of Full Sail. And like you say, I mean, there's not one widget or thing that they didn't have. At the time, I being a little, guy from Canada, going down to Orlando to see this place where they have a Henry. And they have all of this, the IQ, the whole new IQ system from Quantel. They had all this sort of stuff. You're drooling. The same is true, right? I mean, they have whatever is the most state of the art. We were saying before we started recording there, they're building a volume stage, which I think is, and we'll probably talk about that more, but I think is the sort of next fundamental evolution of our industry, not just because The Mandalorian, which my brother works on, and I was just at an event at Skywalker, great people there working on it as well. But not just because of those, but I think because of small shows. We just did a pirate show called Our Flag Means Death, where we used some of the LED virtual production in it, and it's a half-hour comedy. It's exceptionally funny. And it isn't about LED stage. It isn't about being on some weird planet in the middle of nowhere. It's about just looking realistically like you're at sea, because most of the show takes place at sea, and we can't have 900 composite shots for a half-hour comedy. It wouldn't be feasible. So for shows like that, to be able to put a genre comedy on a pirate ship and make it work, that's huge. I mean, so I think that's fundamental. But yeah, Full Sail is building one of those. So if in my era it was, I go and I salivate over a brand new Quantel. Today, I guess you go and you salivate over a volume, a virtual production stage. So
I'll tell you what, just to geek out a little bit more, because and by the way, everyone listening, I apologize ahead of time. We are going to go down the rabbit hole of geeking over old tech, over new tech, over workflow, technical. We're going to get technical on stuff.
Yeah.
It's
You don't get many people that will talk at that level of nerdiness. So it's a special privilege for me to have someone to indulge with in this.
So everyone prepare themselves because it's gonna be a ride,
Maybe
but it'll be
skip
fun.
to the next famous producer episode. That's fine. I don't feel offended if you do.
So when I went, I was the first class to use the Arri SR3.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you know what I'm talking about. That was the one that you could plug into the laptop and get down camera reports. And it was like, holy crap. And by the way, never saw one again after that. Because because it was too damn expensive and everyone used the SR2.
So expensive.
It was so Arri overpriced. So overpriced.
Oh,
it was ridiculous. So that's when I learned. And I think I had 6 people in my class. So I was one of 6 people in my I was class of 730 on Tuesday, and because they popped out so much stuff. But it was a wonderful experience. I loved my experience, but everything I learned at Full Sail was pretty much obsolete the moment I left, because it was right at the moment when nonlinear editing. I edited on a montage.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Very cool.
It was not cool. It was horrible. It's
a controller is really neat, though, that people collect those.
The controller was neat, but when you had like a refrigerator for 8 gigs, and then you put the floppy in. Oh God, everyone's like, how old are these guys? You would put the floppy in, get the EDL, take it over to the CMX 3600, and then try to assemble cut that thing, and it never worked. And it never worked.
No.
That was my first. That was my first experience with nonlinear editing. That was before Avid, before I got an Avid, and then Final Cut. And let's talk for a second about Final Cut. Can we all bow our heads down for Final Cut? For Final Cut 7, I held, bro. I held up until like 4 or 5 years ago. I was still cutting on Final Cut 7 until I finally did a movie. I did my first feature, and I'm like, I would like to shoot raw. And I can't. Yeah. I can't.
Can't do it.
I can't.
So did you move to Premiere or did you move to Resolve? That's the big question.
I was Resolved all the way.
Yeah, Resolve.
Because I was already a color grader. So I was already color grading, and I saw, well, there's this edit button here. Let me click on it.
It was all these extra buttons along the bottom.
Right.
I've never used these last 3.
Yeah, I was like, what is this? And it was like, I think I was on Resolve like 11.
Okay.
So it was like at the beginning of the editing, but it was
could kind of do it.
And I was shooting on a Blackmagic camera. So I was so it worked out beautifully. The work, I was all in house. There was no reassembling. There was no offlining. It was all, I did everything online. So the best part about doing that is I would throw my raw footage. I would cut it raw, which was great. Then when a scene didn't match color-wise, I was like, you know what? If I edit this, I'm not going to be able to work it on color. Let me jump into color, see if I can even make this work. So I would jump into color, see if I can make it work. And if it didn't work, I'd recut it, because I'm like, I don't care if the performance is better. For whatever reason, that shot just didn't light right or something happened. I have to change it. As opposed to going through the whole process and going, we can't make that shot work. We got to bring everything back. And it was just, it was a nightmare.
No, I mean, I think, and a lot of people, I'm certainly not the first one to say this, but a lot of people are sort of like, Resolve is sort of Final Cut 8, right? I mean, it is.
There's no question. There's no question.
From a Final Cut 8. Resolve does it. They're getting better. I mean, now what are we at 17 or something? They're getting better at the offline stuff, the databasing, the finding shit, the organizing stuff. That definitely took time. It could always cut. I mean, it was an assembly editor for online, so
forever.
It could always do that. And now it's just backfilling in all of that stuff that you sort of realize, like, oh shit, I don't have a good way of tagging all of this B-roll. I don't have a good way of organizing my documentary interviews. And I still think a lot of people, aren't using it because it just doesn't quite have that. You didn't think about going to Final Cut 10 ever? You didn't?
I turned it on.
Did you dip your toes in that?
I dipped my toe in it, and I was just like, "What in the hell is this?" And it was and I've actually had the filmmaker who did the documentary on Final Cut. I don't know if you ever saw that documentary about the release of Final Cut Pro, the Final Cut X. It's a whole documentary. It's basically a documentary. It's like full geek mode about just anybody who's interested in how bad the release of Final Cut X was. And it was such a historic failure by Apple. to slap everybody in the face that did Final Cut 7. You can't back, all your projects gone. A completely new, they didn't wean you into this. It was like a completely new, like, I've been eating oranges, but now you're going to eat broccoli. Like, wait, what?
Yeah.
You're not like weaning us into it. You didn't think about, oh, I still want to go back to some oranges every once in a while.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Right?
It was such a horrible release, and they've never recovered. And since then, Final Cut X has become a much more powerful editing system. I've heard nothing but great things. It's a wonderful, but it never got back its core audience. The core audience left, and DaVinci took. I think DaVinci took it over.
Yeah, DaVinci Premiere. Really not avid a lot.
No,
DaVinci Premiere. No. And it's too bad because I think they could have done Final Cut 8 and Final Cut 10 at the same time. If you remember, macOS 9 and macOS 10 lived in parallel with each other for a year or more. Really, I mean, realistically, it was several years where you could roll back to OS 9 quickly. You just boot back over. It wasn't, I mean, you didn't want to do it, and you did it if you had to, but you could. You could keep working. You could use that piece of software that just hadn't been updated yet. And as you got to a place where you felt comfortable with the, whatever, non-Omni version of whatever, finally they came out with a new version of it, you'd roll over and you'd start using macOS 10 more and more and more every day until you couldn't remember the last time you booted back into OS 9. If they had done that with Final Cut 10, made it compatible with Final Cut 7, or updated Final Cut 7 to a place where you get some of the features and you can kind of roll back and forth, I think it would have been, I completely agree with you. I think it was all in the launch. I don't think the tool is terrible. I just think it was in its infancy when it was released, and it didn't get a chance because the market disappeared for it. Everybody left.
Everybody went over to Premiere, and then people who didn't want to deal with Adobe, like myself, who I just did not want to deal with Premiere because I remember when Premiere was Premiere. I don't know, nothing against what's going on. I hear it's wonderful. I hear a lot of people cut on it. That's fine. Sure. It's such a weird thing. It's like a Mac PC. It's like, who do you edit? It's like this weird thing. Like, I don't care, dude. It's just cut. Yeah. Just cut. Whatever makes you feel better. But then I decided to jump on Resolve, and then Resolve just turned into this behemoth.
Yeah.
And if you shoot with their cameras, the ecosystem is just stunning. It's
great. It's great. And it's always been a great color tool.
Well, it's the color tool.
I edit my podcast in Fairlight in the Resolve because, again, I'm like, I'm not an audio person at all.
Right.
And so, like, I wasn't going to learn Pro Tools because, oh, God. And,
Jesus.
I don't really know Logic. And I'm sort of like, well, I already have the tool. I already have Resolve. Very, very comfortable cutting in it. Comfortable doing a little bit of color work and, the things that I need to do in it, all recreational at this point in my career, but whatever. So why not? You'll give it a go. And actually, just like everything else in Resolve, right? Little bit of a learning curve. There's some YouTube videoing necessary. And then next thing you know, you just it's down and it does it. And then you deliver the same way that you deliver everything else. You render the same way you render everything. It's just, you only have to learn the little bit that's new in that new tab, and all the stuff that plugs onto either side of it are the same. So it's so easy to just add on to what you can do with it. I think they're incredibly smart in that. And then it's 9 different applications. Now, do I wish you could turn off some of the tabs so you don't accidentally click through them? Like, that'd be nice. That'd be nice. But
I've worked with Blackmagic a bunch. If anyone's listening, please, guys, take Stephen's
tab, just to click off the tab.
Just a little something.
iOS let you do it with all those pages of friggin' icons that you've never used. You just put them in the basement. You search for them if you need them. But just put them away. Nobody cares.
I'm just saying.
Marie Kondo that interface, man. Just get in there and clean that shit up.
So all right. So you obviously opened up your own post house where you started doing a bunch of stuff in the infancy of when digital was really taking off in the LA. What year was that, by the way, in LA?
Yeah, so that was like the early 2000s, 2003, 2004.
So it's really early. Yeah, it was really early.
Really early, yeah. Michael Cioni.
I know Michael.
I guess technically Michael's at Adobe now, I guess.
Is he? Did he? Because I know because they bought Frame.io.
He was acquired by Frame.io. Frame.io was acquired, and they acquired Michael along with it. He was part of the sale. I believe they crated him up and shipped him up to Palo Alto. So Mike, obviously. Those guys are thrilled. Emery, also a good old friend, and I'm absolutely thrilled for those guys because Frame.io is a fantastic tool.
Amazing.
Really,
I hope it
really
stay. I hope it stays there.
I hope Adobe doesn't ruin it. And I've told everybody, including Adobe, that like I hope they
Don't mess it up
because it's
don't mess
such
it
a
up.
great tool. Such a great tool.
And
so Michael Cioni, myself, Ian Vertivec, and a few others, Otto Arsenal, Jody Leggio, Tony Wise, we started a place called Plaster City.
Yeah.
And the idea with that shop was basically, listen, the industry is going to be mandated to go digital from analog broadcast. And so our thing was, okay, we're going to do digital at the price of standard or of analog sort of. So, and we think we can do this because we can take this commodity off the shelf Apple hardware. We can take Final Cut. We can take
color.
Color. Apple Color. It was Final Touch when we.
Oh, I know. I understand. I remember.
Roland Wood, he's still at Apple. I can't believe he's still alive, but he's still at Apple. Roland's in I don't even know if he's in his 60s, he's in his 50s. He lives hard. But he's still there. He's still working away. And so we had this crazy idea. Well, we're going to build this. And then the FCC said, we're going to push the digital mandate. We're going to push it out a few more years. And all of a sudden we're like, well, uh-oh. But what we didn't realize is that around that same time, film festivals were starting to accept, one, prints from digital, and two, digital prints. And at that time, it wasn't really DCPs because that hadn't really been ratified yet. But the ability to exhibit a film digitally and our ability to do an output to a film print without having to have anything but the final finished version printed to film basically allowed independent filmmakers that just couldn't afford, and here's a dated reference, a Laser Pacific. Our good friend Leon Silverman,
wow.
my mentor and lifelong friend Leon Silverman, in his post house Laser Pacific, at the time the pinnacle of fancy post production. They couldn't afford to go there. A documentary like Who Killed the Electric Car could not afford to finish at a place like Laser Pacific. It was way too expensive. They had too many mixed formats. They had too many this and that and this and that.
I've done docs. I know docs are just nightmares. Nightmares.
And so they needed a little shop that had a reasonable overhead so that our prices could be reasonable, and that more than anything was willing to take the chance on some technology that wasn't just not proven yet, potentially had never been tried or hadn't even been invented to do that. And so we really gained a foothold in that market of independent filmmakers going to this new and expanding, especially in the early 2000s, this real explosion of independently geared film festivals, things that were looking for the indie drama, for the indie documentary, and places at the time, coincidentally, like HBO, were picking up stuff out of those festivals all the time, especially documentaries, right? Back then, that was a big source for the, HBO original films, the HBO documentaries, and regular distribution. Miramax was big into that, obviously. All these companies looking at these small indies, picking them up out of these film festivals. But the thing was just getting your show to that festival, the barrier of creating the print, of doing the post house work, of doing all that. That was often what was keeping people from doing it.
That was all before Blu-rays. That was all before HDSR tapes that you could ship out and all that stuff. It's Dolby E, and all that kind of outputting. Right? It's God,
it's so much easier now. It's like you can now make a DCP out of Resolve. You could, the cinema down the street. You're ready to go. You
could put it on a hard drive, or you could upload it to a cloud, and you're out the door. And it's changed so much. And I was there, and I was in Sundance in 2005, and I would just see HBO. HBO was huge at the festival. Like they would just be buying and putting up docs. Docs was huge. Docs was huge. Yeah. That was the big thing that they would do, is they do a lot of docs that would premiere at Sundance, and I saw their posters everywhere. Funny little side note. I went in and met with Michael.
Did you?
At Plaster City.
Plaster City, our building at 6500 Sunset?
Yes. It was very cool building. I had just gotten to LA. I got to LA in 2008, right before the crash. Yeah. And I was one of the few guys in town who understood the red workflow.
Sure. Yeah.
In 2008.
Yeah, in 2008, there wasn't a lot of people.
There was. I mean, I walked into Technicolor with a red hard drive, and they were like, "What is that?
Get out of here!"
No, what are you talking about? What are you? I got caught up in the music video world, so then I started doing a lot of high-end music videos because they were shooting on red because it was cheaper and all this kind of stuff. But no one could understand the workflow, and they were just getting eaten alive. And then when I figured out, oh God, it was just convoluted, like out of Final Cut into like a program, and then that kicked back out the color, and then it was like this, but it worked. It worked, and and I could do it. And because of that, I was working nonstop, and I would just get and I got some clients for Disney, and then that client said, "Hey, you should go over to Plaster City. They're doing a lot of the stuff you're doing in color." I wasn't on Resolve yet because Resolve was still Resolve. It's still $1 million.
It was still exactly. It was a rack full of gear in the back.
It was $1 million. Yeah, it was $1 million situation. And then I walked in and we talked about like what we could do, and nothing ever panned out. But he was a very sweet guy. Never forgot him. I got him as a gift. I heard that he really liked Nerf.
Oh, he loves Nerf. We have had
Nerf battles
about the Plaster City epic day long Nerf battles. We would modify them. Michael and I'd go to like Toys R Us when that was still a thing on the weekend because we didn't have family. My wife was in Montreal. My girlfriend at the time was in Montreal. Michael, we were all unattached, and we lived a block away from our building. So we were just there 24 hours a day. And on the weekends, we would get these Nerf guns. We'd go to Home Depot, we'd get the springs, bigger springs. We'd do all this sort of insane, and it would be all day. I mean, from sun up to sundown, these epic, sort of community-like, Nerf games. It was incredible.
He probably shot you with the gun I gave him. So the Nerf gun, I got him a badass, super powered Nerf gun or something like that shoots like 45 things at a time or something like that. So, and then he went off to Red afterwards, and then he did, He just, I think, what is it, Panavision? Like Michael's had an insane, he's had a hell of a career, man. He's had a hell of a career. Now, so you eventually you finally end up over at a little company called HBO, and they bring you in, and you start changing things over from film to digital at a time where, from what I understand, it was like 97% of everything that was shot was film, and within 6 years, and within 6 years, you had flipped that. It was 97 digital and 3% film.
Well, I think, I mean, I don't know.
Give or take.
I flipped that.
You had a part of it.
Yeah, certainly. I think that HBO and really the impetus for this, the thing that sort of sparked this conversation there was, two guys, David and Dan, who had never made a television show before, pitched very successfully this show based on a book by George R. R. Martin, to be shot in a part of the world that had no film labs, that had no real significant film infrastructure, and no post infrastructure, to be fair. Not even really any stages. There had been 2 sort of movies made there before. So Girls, it's the show's Girls, right? Girls. It's Girls, obviously. I'm talking about Looking. And so we, so Dave and Dan say, okay, we're going to make Game of Thrones. We're going to do it in Northern Ireland, in Belfast. This is where our Westeros is. It's in Belfast. And so then the natural conversation sort of came, well, we can't shoot this on film. It's impossible. First of all, the amount of shooting we're looking at doing, the amount of places we're physically going to be over the course of just the first season. Forget about where we got to by the time, nearly 10 years of production had rolled around. It wasn't feasible for us to do that. So we started looking and having conversations. And around the same time, our good friends at Airy, approached myself. And at the time I was working at Photochem. I had a consulting gig there for some time setting up the Next Lab project with my very good friend and a former Plaster City person, Tom Weiss, and Mike Broderson and Freddie Goski, and that team at Photochem still doing absolutely exceptional work in sort of pioneering. I mean, really, it's pretty fair to say they sort of invented on-set dailies as a business. People were doing it as an ad hoc kind of thing, and you'd have somebody put something together for one show, but from a sustainable, repeatable thing, it's fair to say that those guys invented that with Next Lab. But anyways, they, HBO approached us and said, listen, me, and they said, listen, we've got this show. It's in Northern Ireland. We don't really have expertise in shooting a big show like that digital. They had previously done the Gabriel Byrne, and the name of it escapes me now, but they had done the sort of daily psychiatry show. They'd done that on the Vericam. A tape-based Vericam, so not even really. I mean, digital, yes, but not file-based. And so they'd done that and said, "Oh, listen, we don't have a lot of experience with this. We need somebody to come and sort of consult. Can you kind of help us understand how?" I said, "Okay, sure, I guess." So like the day after my birthday, I flew to Belfast, and we went through the process of vetting out the first Alexa. We literally had we had serial number 1 because they were still very much, it was a prototype at that point. We would plug it in and it would start kind of recording, and then when we were done recording, we would sort of like unplug it. That was there was
no on-off button. There was no on-off.
Wasn't. It was recording to a tape deck, to an SR.
I remember it. I remember
mobile tape deck, right?
Yeah.
So it was like the camera was just sort of like, it just can come on and make pictures and go.
It was like an ENG camera back in the day, almost.
It really was. And we still had the little window where one day there would be a Magic S/S card in that was sort of like duct taped in from the inside, that was just sort of not there. And so we, with the folks at Airy Rental in London, we started working through sort of how would we do this? Like, is this something you could actually do? We shot some early tests in sort of the summer of that year. And this was This was 2008, 2009, I don't know, a long time ago. And we shot some early tests. We looked at them. We came back to Hollywood, came back to Los Angeles, sat in the theater at HBO. This was when we were in Santa Monica, sort of looked at these pictures on the big, 17-foot screen, way bigger than they would ever be on TV. We looked at, crazy overexposures. We looked at we did all of the things that you would do. And at the end of the day, we sort of all sitting together, Mike Lombardo, who was the head of programming at that time, and everybody sort of said, I think we could do this. I think this looks great. Like, this looks like something that speaks to that sort of, that hallmark of what, an HBO show should be. Lots of people say like, oh, that looks like it should be on HBO, right? But like, we'll describe that. We actually thought, I think everybody did, that meant, well, it was shot on film and it's 16 days of production per episode and it's all the things that we do that others don't. But actually, it wasn't that. It was one step before that. It was, the DPs that we get. It was the time that we give them the light. It was, it was the set crew. It was the carpenters and our production designers and our set dressers, and giving them the time to build the best stuff and dress it the best way and paint it the best. It was all that. And it just so happens that we thought like, well, we were getting a lot of free animation from film, but not really. It was just that, film was accurately capturing what we had there, but that digital was starting to get to a point, and this digital is different than any digital. Obviously, the Alexa and the Red were a demarcation point in space. Everything that came after them, it's a different conversation.
I mean, like, I was literally there when Red. I was talking about Red in 05, 06 when it was still just a box at NAB, right. And people had paid money for this one day. A 4K camera. Can you imagine? Like, everyone was like, what? A 4K? That's insane. How much? No way.
Where do we even do that? Yeah, exactly.
Like, it was insane. Yeah. And then it was so funny because I just couldn't find, with Red specifically, how Jared and that team, they basically upended the entire industry. Yeah. And they literally kneecapped the biggest electronic and camera manufacturers in history. Sony, Panavision, Arri. They kneecapped all of them. And everyone was like, whoa. And then everyone started to try to catch up. And there was a very distinct, and of course, Red has it, if you remember back in 08, was talking about worst workflow ever. Ever. Oh, yeah. And like, if you didn't have Deenan's phone number, like, good luck getting anything done. Like, seriously, horrible. It was to a point where, like, Graham stayed at my house for a couple of days, like, it was whatever we needed to do to, like, get stuff through. Shilowitz had an office at Plaster City for a little while. It was like anything we could do to get this stuff the workflow done.
It was amazing. It was amazing that we did anything.
It was a nightmare. That's why I was working so much when I figured it out. And I was able to get stuff out the door. Dude, I literally had films walk in the door. They're like, we've had it in our hard drives for a year and a half. We can't get our investors paid because we can't get the workflow to work. And then I would tell them, this is how much it's going to cost. And they're like, we gave the last guy that and he couldn't do it. I'm like, I'm sorry for you, brother. I can't. It's too much work. I can't rebuild your entire movie for $3,000. I'm sorry, I just can't. I can't do it. It's too much time.
That's right.
But so when Red showed up, and it's a very distinct thing about Red versus Alexa, and there's a lot of people that talk about the differences and things like that. But when I was shooting Red, I was a Red fanatic when it first came out. I was shooting all my spots on it. I was shooting my shorts on it. Doing projects on it because I loved and I knew the workflow, so I worked out. But it is a very sharp, almost antiseptic image because it can be, unless you got good glass, unless you got vintage glass. I think it's something to soften it out. This is early days. I'm not talking about where they are now. Early days. But then I saw Alexa had a DP friend of mine at the ASC. He's like, you need to come down and look at the Alexa. And I'm like, okay. And I remember the Alexa, like, what is it? He's like, it's 1080p. I'm like, wow, you guys are still sick. Or 2K. I think it was 2K.
Yeah, it was. It was essentially HD.
It was HD. They could say 2K all the.
A little bit.
Like, you could, it's HD. So it was 1080p. I was like, wow. They're like, no, we're focused on quality, not Ks. And I'm like, and a lot of DPs jumped on board because a lot of DPs got really pissed off at Red because they went to the consumer and not to them, where Alexa was talking more to the DPs. But then I saw Alexa, I was like, wow, this is pretty. It's just a different image. Yeah, it's a more filmic image. The latitude is different. It just did a whole bunch of stuff. So was that the reason why you went with Alexa versus Red? Because Red was a little bit more established at that point.
I think so for sure. I think that we had some early tests that were shot with the Alexa that we looked at, and for a variety of reasons, in the early days of the show was sort of the way that we went. I don't know that there was ever the conversation, is it an either or? I think the conversation was sort of from the start. It was the Alexa or it was film. It wasn't ever going to be like, well, which digital camera do we do? I think it was about the DPs at that point had sort of said, okay, listen, I think we could consider doing it on the Alexa because of, like you said, it is a filmic image. It's a lot easier to have people make the jump to, at that point, again, this was 20 years ago, to 15 years ago, to make the jump to the Alexa from, an expectation of film that it was maybe to think about everything that went into the Red. And the funny thing is that we ran into that exact problem a lot. People would come in with a really deep preconception of what they thought a camera could do. The Sony can't, really does a great job of photographing the color blue. Everybody knows Red cameras can't shoot when it's like, slightly humid outside or something. And you're like, well, first of all, where'd you hear that?
On the set of Che, when they had like the first freaking camera, they had to ice pack it because
there was a playing card that was keeping rain out of it. Come on.
We get it. Yeah.
So I think a lot of that was that, a DP talks to another DP, talks to their camera assistant that was on a different film, talks to somebody's uncle that had done whatever. And so what we decided to do after the first season of Game of Thrones was go out and find the sort of state of the art for digital cinema cameras. At that point, there was an Alexa, there was a Red, there was, obviously stuff from Sony, stuff from Canon, stuff from Panasonic. And we got all of that together. Even at that time, that first one, we had a 5D. We had a 5D modded for a PL lens mount. We did that thing. And we shot what we call the HBO Camera Assessment Series, which we're about to start shooting again in January. We decided we would do not a shootout because I don't like shootouts. I don't think that makes any sense. Game of Thrones used literally every camera that was made. We had, in fact, I have it right over there. I have the carbon fiber Red that was built specifically for the show for lightweight aerial stuff, our cable cameras. So we shot a lot of Game of Thrones on the Red. And Jared was nice enough to let us have the ones that we shot. So they're part of the HBO archive. But the idea, was not, well, let's find out which camera's best, because the truth is no camera is best. Some cameras are great at some things and maybe not great at other things. Some cameras are good at more things than others. And some cameras that you would say are total crap might be so amazing at one particular thing that there simply isn't at any price range anything that could compare to it. And I think, Blackmagic was the first disruptor in that space.
Oh,
and now you look at like what DJI is doing and things, and now like disruption in that space is sort of the normal thing. So we actually started doing that camera assessment series every other year. Now we do it every 3 years, and because of COVID, we've had a delay, and so we're a little delayed. The most recent one is 2017, so we're really in need of a new one. But it just became this thing that we use when we sit down with a filmmaker for the first time. We sort of watch it together, and we wash out all of this like, oh, well, my cousin said you can't use the Vericam because it doesn't do, whatever. We kind of wash all that out. We all get on the same page, and then we start to try to develop like, well, what's the visual language of the show? What are we trying to tell you? What are you trying to do here? And then we can have a little bit more informed conversation about the right way to get there. Because it's not always the Alexa. It's not always the one of the flavors of the red. In fact, it might be the Blackmagic. In the case of a recent Duplass Brothers film, we did an entire episode on an iPhone. And, we're not by any stretch of the imagination the first people to do that. But that was the right thing for the show because, it spoke to the sort of frenetic energy that they were trying to produce. And so, it's not about, oh, well, what's the best thing? And I should always be shooting on the best thing. And if I'm not shooting on the best thing, I'm not doing the best work.
No.
Absolutely untrue. Absolutely. It's a total.
I've shot. Look, I was shooting on the Red One for a long time, and it was good enough for Che, and many other amazing movie. It was perfectly fine. Are there more bells and whistles with a newer one at the time? Sure, why not? But it still works. I'm going to say something very controversial in regards to cameras here because I'm a Blackmagic guy. I love Blackmagic, and I actually did a shootout between Blackmagic and Arri, and I wanted to test it because the closest thing I've seen to Arri is Blackmagic as far as the aesthetics of that filmic vibe. I shot them both down the middle.
Yep.
Both down the middle, same lenses, and I put them up on the broadcast monitor, like with the calibrated monitor, and I checked them both out, and I was like, I challenge anybody to tell me which is which.
It is a margin, and that's the thing.
It is this big. Now, with that said, before everyone loses their mind listening, where you see, and then obviously the Blackmagic's a little bit more affordable than the Alexa. Just a little bit more affordable.
The funny thing is they're all coming down, which is kind of amazing.
Well, they have to. I mean, eventually they have to get down. But still, but Blackmagic is like talk about disruptor. It's insane.
Yeah.
So the difference is that as soon as you start pushing the image, the Alexa shows its true colors, where it's like, I'm the Alexa. Don't forget who I am.
Oh, I get it. Yeah.
And then you start looking at the Blackmagic, and it starts falling apart on either over or under. But you honestly shouldn't be shooting 5 stops under.
That's exactly right. Well, here's the thing, and I've said this a lot, Alex. That the trick is this: if you hit the bullseye on both of those cameras, it is challenging to see the difference. If you are able to get right into the pocket, especially if you've got the modified OLPF that you can add to the Blackmagic cameras, you are hard pressed for most people to tell the difference. But to your point exactly, it's when you don't hit the bullseye. It's when your target gets a little bigger and your spread is sort of a little bit all over the place. Now, if on my show, we're spending a lot of money every day to make sure that everything we get is usable. It's a huge effort, huge amount of money, huge amount of people, huge amount of expectation to get that show on the air at a particular time. If you're a smaller filmmaker, a filmmaker that's just starting out, you have a completely different luxury of taking the time to get the bullseye. You can spend the time on set. If you need to spend an extra half hour lighting to get it just in there, to fill in that little bit of darkness underneath the table, to just rein in get a little cutter on whatever is blowing in through a window or something to sort of rein it in, you can get to the same place. You just spent your money on time on set, and maybe you can do that, maybe you can't, but you spent your money and time instead of in the 40, 50, 60, 120% more than you would spend on the camera. And for me, I can't spend another hour on set.
It's too expensive.
A little bit of underexposure, a little bit of overexposure.
Nope.
I just need to get it. I can't deal with time on set dicking with camera shit to make sure that, it's going to be perfect. I know that if we get it into pretty big box, we'll get it there in post. We'll get there at the end.
Yep, you've got the latitude, yeah.
Color the shit of it. It's going to be fine. And so I think that's the difference. Right? And that's, young filmmakers ask me all the time, there was a whole season of Project Greenlight that I think,
let's not go there. I was in season 2. I don't want to talk about it.
It was sort of like, I have to shoot film. This isn't going to be my vision unless I shoot film. And so often, young filmmakers nowadays, you sort of have this conversation where you say, yeah, okay, it's great. It's fantastic for Jonah Nolan to shoot film on Westworld because honestly, at the end of the day, it's a rounding error, the additional cost for him to shoot film. Jonah's extraordinarily passionate about it. He comes from, a very valid artistic point of view on why he wants to do that. If you are a new filmmaker and you have an extremely limited budget, amount of time, everything else that goes with that, the difference to your end product of shooting film or shooting digital, of finding a great digital camera that you can afford to, maybe you can own it so you don't have to worry about rental days killing you. You don't have to, you can get to a place where you can make a super compelling image with a super compelling story. And at the end of the day, if you make a great movie, if it looks 1.5% better on film to 1% of the people that will critically evaluate it, it's who cares?
No one cares. When you're on the set of Game of Thrones and you've got 500 extras and you've got 1,000 things going on, and it's starting to rain, you can't dick around with, I'm off of a stop.
Exactly. We're just not going to care.
Yeah, but the Alexa will be able to give you that pocket where if you're shooting raw and you put it in post, you're golden. You're golden.
Yeah, you're fine. I shot, scrape it in.
Listen, I did my last feature. I shot it on the Blackmagic Pocket 1080p.
Cool, yeah.
The Super 16.
Right up here. Yeah.
One of the most beautiful cameras I've ever owned. I love that little camera.
Yeah, it's the coolest. It's the greatest.
The sensor is something that's so beautiful. And
I agree.
It's so aesthetically pleasing, and it's so it's a Super 16. Basically, it's a Super 16.
Yeah, Super 16, yeah.
It's a Super 16 sensor. It was shot at 1080p, so I decided to shoot my entire movie on that camera with vintage glass and with a Sigma 18 to 35 photo lens.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that last movie was I went to Sundance and shot a whole movie at Sundance about how filmmakers trying to sell a movie at Sundance. So I stole the whole movie at Sundance, and it was fantastic.
And it's a perfect camera for that. What other camera? You're not going to do that with an Alexa.
I had I walked around with my DP. It was me, the DP, and the sound guy, and a friend. That's it. That was the crew.
Yeah.
And my 3 actors, and we shot the whole thing in 4 days, and literally 4 days of running around just grabbing stuff all over the place, and that. I figured it out. I'm like, do I have a movie? I don't know. Let's see what happens. But it didn't cost me a whole bunch, so let's see what happens.
Yeah.
And I wanted to see what I could do with that camera, and I did tests, and I knew what I wanted, and I wanted that kind of Super 16, Sundance vibe from the 90s.
Yeah.
And I did it, and I threw a little extra grain on it with a filter just to give it a little extra crisp. And then I played it, and everyone was like, it's still one of the most stunning things I've ever shot. And I blew it up to 2K for DCP.
Yeah.
And I world premiered it at the Chinese theater, and I'm like, oh fuck, oh screw it. I've never seen this big projected. I don't even know if it's gonna hold. I have no idea. Dude, it looked gorgeous. I blew up a 1080p image to a 2K DCP, and it projected with a real projector at the Chinese theater.
Yeah.
Gorgeous. And I just did that to prove to everyone, no one cares. Does it look good? Great. I don't care if it's an Alexa. When filmmakers come to me, they're like, oh man, I shot this with this new camera. I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah,
I don't care.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, when Sean Baker...
Don't advertise the camera. It doesn't matter.
No, when Sean Baker did Tangerine, nobody even knew it was an iPhone until the very end of the credits that said, shot on an iPhone.
Yeah.
That was it. Because he didn't lead with that.
And the thing is it's also it's a great show, and that's really what matters. It's it doesn't really matter.
Story.
And our good friend, Shane Hurlbut and those kind of guys have been doing that stuff for a while and have sort of made it the hallmark of what they do. But at the end of the day, like, it's also because like they shoot great stuff. They have a really, again, I'll say they have a really frenetic energy. Sean has a lot of energy.
Sean's been on the show. Shane has been on the show. I am aware of his energy.
He's a big guy. He's got a big energy. He can be a terrifying dude sometimes, but he's a good friend, good guy, really good guy, beautiful human being, a very warm, very, very, very gracious person. But he's got he's got a lot of energy, and it shows through in his work, the kind of stuff that he does, right? The kind of, every movie feels like a battlefield a little bit, I think, when Chelsea. But the thing is that there is a particular type of technology that lends itself to doing that, and it also, to a little bit, it sort of enables that, right? You couldn't have done that if you were dealing with, even an Arri ST or something like that, with a little mini mag or something. You just can't. I mean, first of all, it's crazy heavy, but also like you're limited by runtime, you're limited by batteries, you're limited by this, you're limited by that, you're limited by exposure, you're limited, all these sort of things. And now you can say, well, listen, I've got and we haven't even talked about DJI. I think DJI is the new black magic when it comes to disruption, not because they're making the world's greatest images, but because they are completely, they believe the camera archetype, the form factor of a camera, is completely irrelevant. And they're just like, we're going to build backwards from trying to get this shot. They're like, okay, we want to get these kind of shots. Now go backwards into a camera from there, which isn't how you're going to shoot, your 3-camera sitcom. It's not meant to do that. That's not what that camera is. It's not to replace the Arri on, production television and production drama. It's not meant to do that. It's meant to be something that nobody's ever seen before, that is totally crazy, and also doesn't cost $100,000. So, because nowadays, we're not looking necessarily to get images on our service that are, that unique from a photographic standpoint. We are, but everybody's shooting on the Alexa. Everybody's shooting on the Red. Everybody's shooting in, a pocket of lenses, admittedly a big pocket, but they're shooting in a selection of lenses. And so where we're really trying to differentiate, and I think smart, filmmakers are trying to differentiate, is in perspective. We're trying to get shots on television that you've never seen on television. Put a camera in a place where you've never seen a camera. You've never seen the point of view, the perspective from that particular vantage point on that particular action, and people remember that. People remember the Mare of Easttown shots that come down along the river into a sitting by the body shot that everybody has seen a million times. Who murdered this daughter? A million times we've seen the Law and Order, crouch down by the body, lift up the sheet, shake your head, throw it back down. How do we introduce that scenario in a totally new way? How do we bring people into that scene in a totally new way? And everything from drones to who knows if the Swan, the attack Swan DJI camera isn't going to be something that allows us to, put a camera on rollerblades or whatever, put a camera into a moving vehicle, into a car, hand it off, do these sort of things that you don't have an opportunity to do with a full-blown film package, a full-blown digital package. And the greatest thing about it is that, to your point earlier, we're 80% of the image almost out of the box in most cases. So when it comes to pairing the Blackmagic camera with the Alexa, which we do all the time, when it comes to pairing the super small carbon fiber Komodo with the Alexa, with a Sony Venice, with it, whatever, we can do it. And so we can get the camera, not just the right camera for the show, the right camera for the shot. And we have interchangeability of lenses, and we have a proliferation of Super 35 or greater sensors. And we have all these things now, all this tool set that, like, man, 10 years ago, if we could have done that, the kind of
on the first season of Game of Thrones, imagine.
That's right. Imagine it. And you look at where we got in season 8, where we got, the Battle of the Bastards flyover, which is actually a cable camera. We didn't do drones because it always ran sideways in Northern Ireland. We actually had a cable stretched between those two locations, and that cable would run that camera at 65 miles an hour. Like, we also had something called the Bat, which is Duncan Barber's camera car built onto the back of a Land Rover Defender. Everything comes back to Land Rovers in my
obviously.
But he has something called the Bat, which is a Russian arm on the back of essentially a flat deck Defender, and that sucker can roll around in half foot deep mud and get amazing tracking shots and things like that. So it's just like we live in a world now where we're so spoiled by the kinds of places we can put cameras.
Right.
That, like, that's really, I think, where people need to be thinking more than, well, I have to have the finest, most cinematic aesthetic. Like, it's not that. It's that.
Dude, you're not Stanley Kubrick, guys. Calm the hell down, all right? You're not Stanley Kubrick.
Stanley Kubrick already did that. Go do something else. Go do something
like
new.
You know what I mean, and don't get me started on Stanley, because I'll go down the rabbit hole with him forever. But like what he did with, like in 2001 and with Barry Lyndon with the lenses and all that kind of stuff, and the epic stories of him building his own stuff. Can you imagine Stanley Kubrick today? Can you imagine what him or Hitchcock would do in today's world with the toys that we have today to play with? I mean, oh my God, it would be epic.
You look at what people like, and maybe I'm unpopular for saying it, but you look at things like what James Cameron is doing, and I know because of a variety of reasons, he's not everybody's favorite person.
I don't care what anyone says. He's an amazing filmmaker, regardless of anything else. I don't care.
And every time I've interacted with him, he's been a great guy. I realize I'm probably in the minority there, but and
he's
I'm coming from a slightly different angle than most people. But
also don't forget, he has softened in his years.
He's a calmer,
I've talked to people that worked with him back in the Terminator days and Titanic. I know a lot of people who worked with him on Titanic. Yeah. And then I talked to people that worked with him on Avatar, and he is a completely different dude. Does he still get frustrated? Absolutely. And everyone listening, you know why James Cameron gets frustrated? Because he can do everybody's job on the set better than they can. And that's not ego. That is just the reality of the man is a genius, once in a generation kind of intellect and artist. And I always tell people, there's only one human being on the planet who could make Avatar.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly right.
There's nobody else. There's not one other filmmaker who could walk into Fox Studios back in whatever year it was and say, I need $500 million to develop new technology for an IP that doesn't exist about blue people on a planet, and there's not going to be any major star power in it. No. And it's going to take me 2 to 3 years to figure it out. Who else? Not Nolan, not Spielberg, nobody else.
No. Well, and I think James Cameron has this interesting thing of not only does he know where his story is going, and no one else does, no one else can even conceive it, but he knows where the technology is going. And I think he's frustrated because it hasn't caught up with him yet. I think 3D, the thing that he did with 3D, all of that sort of stuff, although maybe not critically acclaimed, maybe not what audiences totally love. Although the funny thing is in Canada, 3D is still huge. Not so much here and in Mexico, but the rest of North America huge. Worldwide, still very big. But looking down the road, he's always seeing a little farther ahead than the rest of us are. What's possible with technology that just isn't quite there yet,
Let's look at George started it with Star Wars. I mean, he was frustrated with the cantina scene because he couldn't get it the way he wanted it to do. Yeah. There are these visionaries that do so. Yeah. I always say that to people. I'm like, don't. And I know a lot of people personally who've worked with him on a one-on-one. Yeah. And you just when you're in that kind of I've been blessed to be able to talk to a lot of these guys on my show, and talking to them, there's a sense, there's a thing, there's an energy there that you go, oh, I get it. I get why they're giving him $100 million. Yep. I understand. And I'm sure you deal with that all the time.
Oh yeah, no, and it is like you say, it's an absolute, it's a privilege, it's a blessing to be able to work with these people and to experience that firsthand. And it's a double-edged sword sometimes. People are with great power. Sometimes comes an awfully large ego, and that sometimes breaks
in
bad.
Hollywood. No,
sometimes breaks bad. But then you meet guys like Jon Favreau, who is like the nicest guy in the world and has no reason to be. Right? He doesn't have to be that way. He could be a total asshole. He's been extraordinarily successful. But you get to talking to him about ask him about Chef if you ever want to spend an hour. And he's so passionate about the film. He loves the Star Wars stuff. He loves the Mandalorian. He loves the characters. He knows all about it. He does, and of course Dave Filoni does, right? He does because he's little mini George Lucas,
No, there's no question.
There's no question about it. But Jon Favreau knows it at a level that, again, he has no business knowing. He's not. You don't get the sense that he goes home and collects Star Wars figures off of eBay. But like he knows it. He knows the material. He knows the world outside of the IP, outside of the fact that like it's this thing you can buy T-shirts for and everything else. Like he knows it because he's part of that world, because he's helping to make that world. And like it's just so cool to meet people that like are as passionate about this dumb shit that's totally made up as you are, and they're the ones making it. Like that's so great.
And which brings me to the new technology, which I think is going to change. It has changed already our world, which is the volume and that kind of technology. I've worked. One of my best friends did the Mandalorian VFX, and he was explaining to me. He's like, "Look, man, I know you guys see that like behind the scenes stuff, and it's like, it's all in camera, it's all perfect. Nah, man, it ain't. It isn't. No. But it is 80% there. You still got to clean up stuff. You still got to do a little comp here. You got to do a little dress up, a little paint work. But overall, it's you're 80% there. I mean, you can have your 12-hour sunset.
Exactly. Yeah. And also, I mean, and I'm a big advocate for saying like, and this is a Joe Bauer quote from the Game of Thrones series, but like if you believe the fire, believe the dragon, right? If the fire's real, the dragon's real. There's something to being an actor in a space, looking out onto a virtual horizon, but not looking into a field of green.
Yep.
Being in a space that you, for a second, you forget that you're standing on a stage in the middle of Leavesden, surrounded by TV screens. For a second, you're on Dragonstone and you're seeing the world around you and you're seeing the skyline and you're seeing the buildings in the distance and you're part of that world in a way that if that was a giant green curtain, which we had to do a lot on the first series because we just didn't have any other options. We had boats in sea battles that had to be draped in green. We didn't have an option to do anything else. There was no way to do it back then. Right. And so it was fine. It looked great. People got through it. Actors were fine. They're incredibly talented, and they can look at the tennis ball and they can pretend it's a dragon. They can look at the tennis ball in the distance and pretend that they're seeing the Red Keep from the ocean for the first time, and they're imagining. But what if we can just give them that? What if we could just be on set and they can see something of that, right? And so it's sort of, and it's this Jon Favreau quote of sort of saying like on Jungle Book, they were in the headset, and then they're thinking for Mandalorian, could they just take the headset and just put it on the walls? Like, why not put everybody inside the headset together? And like, it's such a simple idea, to be fair, that there's now, I think, again, like I said, the sea change for how we do stuff in our industry will come about because of these volume spaces on every level. But it's such a simple concept that has now given birth to what will be, I'm not saying Jon Favreau invented it, but he's certainly a big advocate of it, and Disney getting their premiere show for Disney Plus.
It was Mandalorian. It was Mandalorian.
It's a big deal.
Mandalorian is the show that brought it to everyone's attention, and it just happened to hit during a pandemic, and it was like everything just kind of hit perfectly for that, because like, we can't go out, we need a controlled environment. Wait a minute, the volume's controlled. We could create a bubble there, all this kind of stuff. So, and I was talking to I don't mean a name drop, but Dean Cundy, so Dean was on the show, and he was like, he just as passing, he was like, I just got back from the Book of Boba, and I'm flying out tomorrow to season 3 of Mandalorian. I'm like, I'm sorry, what? Yeah. Let's go back here for a second, Dean. You lit the volume? Because I hadn't talked to anybody who's lit it. Yeah. I've talked to post guys. What is it like working on it? And I'm like, do you get the reflections? He goes, you get the reflections. That's what's really good about it, because you get these reflections on the especially the shiny helmets and things like that.
The chrome helmet.
The chrome helmet you get, because my VFX guys are like, dude, you have no idea how difficult that is to get. You never got it right. Never ever get that right. You never get reflections right in post.
No, I mean, you've basically made your main character a Knoll ball, and so like, how do you you can tell that's like, unfortunately, where like production designers who are absolutely gifted artists and far beyond my capability of any of that kind of thinking, but where it's sort of like a little tiny bit of a disconnection between like, but how we make movies, right? If you make a mirror ball their head, it's going to be real hard for us.
So
what's the plan without the volume?
Like, can we not have the mirror around his head? Like that's like, it's like Enter the Dragon. It's like Enter the Dragon, but like at a much higher level. With my room of mirrors.
It moves around and somebody's wearing it. Yeah, no, it's like, it's crazy, right? But no, I totally.
He was telling.
It's huge. It's going to change the way we do things.
So, and then he was telling me how he lights it, and like I'm like, how do you get lights in there? And do you shoot outside? He goes, yeah, we sometimes set the lights outside of the volume because there is holes.
Coming
obviously, there's coming over the top, and then just fill-ins here and there. And he works with the graphics guys on how they're lighting it, and it's insane. How is that technology affecting what you guys are doing at HBO?
Well, I think, like I've said, I think it's changing the way that we're thinking about not just the big shows. Obviously, House of the Dragon, the new Game of Thrones series, the prequel based on the original series. It makes sense for a show like that, right? We're in a time in our production lives where traveling to 1,000 locations in all these different countries is not practical for a number of different reasons. Health and safety, being a big one, but also, it's difficult to have a world that's as expansive as that. And, try to still get it producible for television. You can't just have 900 locations in 52 different countries. That's not feasible. So the idea of being able to utilize technology like virtual volume production, it just makes it possible. It makes that world more realizable. We can give to creative now the ability to be in all of these different locations that otherwise we couldn't. Like I said at the beginning, the be able to put pirates on a pirate ship for a half-hour comedy and have that be essentially an in the box, in the camera, sort of thing. We couldn't do that. Like we're not going to master and commander a boat out in the middle of the goddamn ocean for a
Pirates of the Caribbean.
There's no friggin' way. We can't do it. It's never going to work, right? It's never going to work. Plus, that's really hard on people. They're not going to be funny when they're, suffering through.
Oh, it's miserable.
It's a miserable way to shoot. So the idea of like, we're in Burbank, we're on a stage, they get to go home to their kids at night or back to their comfortable hotel room. And, they show up and you know what, looking through that camera, you're hard pressed to tell me that they're not out in the middle of the ocean for, the 50 basically medium shots that have it as an out of focus background. We're not doing epic boat battles and things like that. It's not what the show is about. And so I think it just more so than the Game of Thrones, the Mandalorians, things like that, because obviously it makes total sense. It works there. It's great. That makes total sense. But for the little shows that, maybe this idea of a virtual backlot becomes a real thing where you can shoot on a street in Chicago without going and shooting on a street in Chicago.
But you would have
make that usable.
They would have never greenlit that show without this technology.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think you'd been hard pressed to convince somebody to spend that kind of money on a comedy if you couldn't kind of fit it in the box like that,
because it's green screen, comp. You're talking about 900 shots an episode.
Yeah, exactly. And how do you do that? And also like the economy of doing that just doesn't make sense. So what you end up doing is you're shooting with the boat as the background, the cabins, you're awkwardly below decks a lot more than
right.
Just gives it gives creative the freedom to be able to say, this takes place on the deck of the ship because that's where it would take place. That's where the guys work during the day. It's dark. It's dark in the cargo hold of a ship. They don't really spend time. So and admittedly, it's a comedy, it's silly, all those sort of things. Does it have to be totally realistic to pirate life? No. But again, if it sort of becomes The Office, but with pirates, the realistic nature of the show also makes it funny.
Is that the pitch? Was that the pitch? It's The Office with pirates. It's The Office with pirates.
Our Flags Mean Death coming up in early next year, and
that's awesome. I can't wait to see it. I can't wait to see it.
HBO Max is going to be hilarious. It's so funny.
I cannot wait to see that.
so funny. But I mean, that's a perfect example. That's not something you'd think, oh, well, obviously that's shot in a virtual LED volume. But a comedy pirate show,
It is, but eventually we're going to get to that place you were talking about. Let's go shoot on the streets of Chicago, but we're going to be shooting in Burbank, and it's going to look exactly the same.
And for the giant shows, the Avatars, the Game of Thrones, the Mandalorians, we're going to spend time on the establishing shot. We're going to get that amazing cliffside in Northern Ireland that is not reproducible anywhere in the world. We're going to shoot there for 2 days. And then we're going to come home to the stage, and we're going to shoot all those dumb plates of medium shots that don't have to happen on top of a hill where the wind is blowing and the raining is coming sideways and the mud is knee deep and all this sort of stuff, because you know what? It's out of focus in the background. We established an amazing open, and now we're going to get the work done of getting really good scene work done, really good people talking to other people. We're going to get the dialogue great. It's going to be crisp and clean and easy to understand. The performances are going to be really outstanding because we're not putting people through hell. And I'm not saying that like sometimes putting people through hell doesn't create an amazing performance, but we don't have to. We don't have to.
Just look at The Shining. Look at The Shining.
Yeah. Right? I mean, look at Apocalypse Now. Look at all these movies that like torturing people created the greatest movies of all time. But that's not the business that we're in.
We're not. It is not.
We don't have to do this. But what I think, and maybe my last comment on the virtual production thing, is that what I hope to see is that every department just goes virtually native. And what I mean by that is that, remember when it was a special person that used to do CAD drawings for the production design department, where there was like an outside company, there was a specific person, there was a whatever. They would come in, they would do the CAD, you do your traditional paper drawings, you do your whatever, and then they would do the CAD, they would break it down. And we were saving all this money because we could create construction drawings and stuff automatically. And now it's just part of the production design team. Everybody knows how to do it. Everybody speaks native CAD. Everybody has, the ability to look at a SketchUp. Directors know how to open SketchUp, look at the models, do all that sort of stuff. Well, I think the next stage is that those folks are going to start understanding the build in virtual space, because we got to start now well before we have ever started any of that stuff. We're going to put a set in the digital space.
Of course, you have to build it.
Show up a month before and start, throwing up 2x4s. It doesn't work like that anymore. We have to be well ahead of that. We have to be in the previous conversation. We have to be, and so I think like the opportunity there is all these folks coming into the industry, coming from places like Full Sail to come full circle, is that we have the ability to take what are digital job, virtual production jobs, and simply make them jobs of that department. The camera person that understands tracking on the camera, how to set that up, how to keep that moving, that doesn't need to be a special virtual production person. One day that will be a second assistant or a first assistant. They will just be part of their normal lives. Think about wireless Viz, right? That was something that was like super whiz bang and was a special kit and was all this. And now every first has a Fizz. There's nobody pulls this, all that stuff.
Listen, I used to be the Apple tech at my commercial production house, my first job, and I used to run Apple Talk. And if one of the reps kicked the cable, it knocked the entire network out for the entire building. So I literally had to go around clicking, and now like people were like, "What's this Wi-Fi? You mean Wi-Fi?" Yeah, like now it's just part of what we do. Everybody. So that's going to eventually be the way it is with. Look at editing, digital editing. Like now everybody cuts. Everyone cuts on their own. They could do their own stuff. I really want to ask you, what is the workflow, man? Because I preach and yell from the top of the mountain to filmmakers. Workflow. Yeah. You want to shoot with a 6K camera, but you're working on a laptop from 7 years ago. This is not going to end well for you.
That's right.
So what is the workflow for, let's say, the new Game of Thrones series? Like, I'd love to hear the workflow, like from camera to end.
Yeah, and I think in general, it's probably not just the Game of Thrones. I think that we kind of look at it holistically as what we really preach is something we call a color managed workflow. And so that's really for us the sort of big piece of it. Now, I'll start right all the way on set. We do have loaders on set that are downloading material, making sure that's backed up and verified on set. Depending on the show, we're shooting usually whatever the native digital capture format on that camera is. So if it's the Alexa, in a lot of cases, we're shooting Quad 4 or XR ProRes. Occasionally, we're shooting Arri RAW. We found the utility in Arri RAW. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. It depends, right? We get a lot out of what we need from ProRes, and so sometimes we're there. It would be great to have ProRes RAW more readily realized, first of all, more capable, and then secondly, more realized. But if we're shooting the red, we're definitely obviously shooting a red raw. If we're shooting Sony, we're shooting in one of Sony's many flavors of raw, depending on the project. But that's getting backed up on set. That's going into our daily systems, which in most cases are ColorFront. I would say for the most part, we're running some flavor of ColorFronts. It's giving us real-time dailies. So we are, in many cases, offset, doing all of our syncing, doing our primary on-set grade, and that usually is It's LUTs lookups that were set from the colorist and the DPs in pre-production. We did camera tests, we did whatever. We set some looks for the show, or something that maybe the DP will spend time on set with a DIT setting in a new location, but we were not doing is coloring every single shot, on set. Right. We don't do that. It goes back to how it gets. We get dailies put up on Pix for us to watch at the studio. We're making
on cloud.
There.
You're doing it, so it's going to the cloud.
100% cloud-based, yeah, and it goes down to everybody's devices. We use a combination of Pix and a little bit of Frame.io as well, depending on what we're doing. And then, it sort of comes around to the editorial stage. To be fair, most of our shows are cut in the Avid because that's that's the industry we're in. Those are the editors that we're working with. So then they're handing a list over to the Post House. Post House is assembling from the raw material. So we're not cutting the raw because we have some limitations for a variety of reasons. What we are doing is more remote editorial. So we're doing a cloud-based Avid that someone is working on a terminal, essentially, and it is nearly seamless in some cases. We're getting a really nice experience, and we had to do that because nobody was allowed to breathe the same air together. And now we're finding that editors are saying, I don't want to go back to the edit room 7 days a week for 15 hours a day. I would like to be. I can be at home. I can be doing this at night. I can have dinner with the kids. They can go to bed. I'm going to stay up until 2 o'clock in the morning editing, but I've seen them for 3 hours in prime time. I'm not eating, takeout at my edit console somewhere in some weird Hollywood. That's great.
So to stop you for a second, just so everyone knows, like my buddy who does a lot of the high-end visual effects, when the pandemic happened, a lot of the VFX studios were just always afraid of security. That was the big thing. It's like security, like, oh my God, someone's going to get this footage. Oh my God, it's going to get bootlegged. There's all this kind of stuff. But with VFX, they realized that once, obviously they're going to do it with trusted VFX guys, and there's contract upon contract, but they're just doing pieces of. They're doing like a piece here, so 15 people. So nobody has all of it at the same time. So now that's become a norm. Like my buddy who's done every major Marvel movie, every major Star Wars movie, all that stuff. Yeah. He used to have to fly to London, fly to New Zealand, fly to Toronto, fly to Vancouver. And now he's at home, and he's like, for the next year and a half, all I'm booked up is just completely terminal. So the game has changed as far as post is concerned for that stuff.
Oh, no, it's huge. And I mean, and that is key because I think quality of life for those people, you do better work when you are in, you're in a better place in your life, right? Again, try not to torture people, try to make people's jobs something that they enjoy doing because they do better work. Mm-hmm. And so, once that editorial cut comes in, that will then go to a post house. And that's really where the color management piece comes in because we don't display reference until essentially output, meaning that it becomes 709 for standard HD. It becomes, whatever, Rec 2024, HDR, whatever, P3 for cinema, whatever, only when it's essentially exhibited. So you're working in an uncolor corrected or an undisplay reference space, right? So you're working in, let's say it's ARRI. You're working in log C through the entire process, everything, all of the creative grading, all the scene matching, all that sort of stuff, all the visual effects, everything is being done in log C. And then when we create that linear broadcast deliverable, streaming deliverable, theatrical exhibition, whatever it is, that's when it's getting that display reference baked into it. So that's when it's actually becoming Rec 709 HD. That's when it's becoming Rec 2020 HDR. And that allows us, the elasticity to make both of those things without doing totally separate grading sessions for them. So what we might do is we'll have a trim to get the HDR from the HD or to get the HD from the, or SDR from the HDR. We'll do a pass on that, but we'll not recolor correct the whole thing. We don't use the Dolby Vision automatic trim stuff just yet. For a variety of reasons. The majority of our customers are looking at stuff in SDR. Our series stuff is still SDR, although the Warner Brothers feature movies every month are in HDR, and more stuff is coming to HDR all the time. So it's really important to us to sort of archive the creative and as much of that as humanly possible and sort of distill that down into something that we can take to new display technologies in the future. So today we're Rec 2020 on an HDR OLED display at UHD, but maybe in a year's time, 2 years' time, 10 years' time, we want to take that same asset. We want to take House of the Dragon, and we want to create a version of that plays on an 8K super
Jesus.
ultra high, whatever. But we don't want to go back and completely restore the project like we're doing with some of the older ones, right? We want to be able to move.
It's making my anus pucker thinking about all of the files and making sure you have all the versions and the deliverables. I can only imagine the deliverables list you deal with, man. Oh my God, audio, and let's not even get in audio now with Atmos and all that, and it's everything. It gets, and then because I was wondering, like, so how did you guys do? How did you remaster season 1? Because that was all 1080p.
Well, yeah, it was all 1080p. So we went back with Joe Finley and John Reed, the colorists on the project, and we went back to camera original material. We
it was all film, right? It was all that was all film. Oh no, that was Ari.
It was SR. It was SR tape. It was SR tape.
Jesus Christ.
So we remastered everything to digital, to a digital UHD. It was upres. The HD material had to be upres, so we did that on the conversion from tape to digital, from on capture essentially. And then they went back from a log C, which was on the tape. Now, admittedly, this is log C packed onto a video cassette, so not exactly your 12 bits of unadulterated XR, but whatever. And then graded from there and created the assets, the version of the show that we see. And then, of course, in later seasons, we were using the codex recorder to record a digital, at least uncompressed version of that. And then we were eventually on to internal recording on the magazines, and then finally ended up with like this 3.2K, which is we could sort of ultimately do that. And the reason that we did 3.2K is because it's a really nice linear, no rounding error scale up to UHD. And so the last few seasons, 3.2K, which was a format we worked with Ari to create specifically for Game of Thrones, and now it's a very popular format. And we did that so that we could actually windowed a 2.8K image out of that, because we put tracking marks and things around the outside of it, so that we had all this tracking information buried in the image, where we didn't have to then we didn't have to actually comp it out. We just cropped it out. It just became a part of the image region we didn't use. And so there was lots of cool little tricks like that we can.
So I have to ask you as well, man. How many Ks is enough? We're at 12K now.
To your show, yeah. I mean, I don't know. You see, I don't really, maybe I don't entirely subscribe to the Ari model of Ks don't matter at all, and maybe I don't entirely subscribe to it's the race to the most Ks, and when we get there, it'll be the best. I think it depends on the show. It depends really on how much does that K cost you, and I don't mean money wise. Like, what does it mean? Early days of the Red workflow, right? Like, what is it? How much work do I have to put in? My iPhone shoots 4K, and it shoots 4K all day long, and I don't even notice it. So yeah, I mean, it's shooting 4K. It's shooting it on a lens the size of a teardrop, but it's still doing it. So in that case, it doesn't cost me anything. Why not? But if I'm shooting a major feature, and the difference between going UHD or greater than UHD, and really everything's UHD, so like the version 8K, 6K versus shooting standard 4K. It really depends, right? If it's easy, if it's smooth, glassy smooth, and Red Code certainly makes that easy. You can shoot 8K and you don't even really feel it. Yeah, it's big, the files are heavy, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, but you have to think about the workflow down the line. It's kind of like the river. Like if you start here, well, how is this going to affect your final? And like, are you going to be able to cut off? You're going to be able to cut raw, or you can't. Okay, so now you got to go offline. Then you're going to have to redo a reassemble. Don't even get me started with proxies. That's always a fun little process.
Hopefully we're almost at the end of that. But I say every time anybody says that, then there's another new higher format, and you have to do it all over again. So it's very cyclical.
It just keeps going and keeps going. And at a certain point, you're just going to go. And I know a lot of filmmakers out there listening, they get caught up with the gear porn, which is what, It's all about the gear porn. It's all about what's the latest this and the latest that. Dude, if you're a good storyteller, you could shoot it on an iPhone. It doesn't matter. Exactly. I mean, it matters to a certain extent. And yes, obviously you need to get the aesthetics in there. But talking to someone like you who's who's working at a very high level with a company like HBO, working on some of the biggest television shows in history, production-wise and every other way-wise, dealing with that kind of workflow, it is, I mean, there's very few other TV shows probably other than Game of Thrones that handle the kind of workflow that at the size and vastness of what you guys did. It was just it was the biggest show. Even Mandalorian doesn't do that because it's not as big of a show. It doesn't have the budget that you guys had on these shows. What was the budget on those episodes? It was like 10. It was like 10 million or something. It was like something.
It was an undisclosed lot of money.
It was undisclosed.
It was an undisclosed lot of money. But yeah, and I appreciate that, and we all, David, Dan, myself, everyone who worked on the show, really genuinely appreciate that, not just that people appreciate that it's a very expensive show, but that it is a show that people loved and it kind of made a little bit of a dent in the zeitgeist for a little while. And just what an incredible, amazing privilege it is to just be even adjacent to something like that, and I think a lot of people, sort of think about it as a great relationship, maybe a relationship that for some people didn't end the way they wanted it to.
It never does.
But it made an impact. It never does. It never does. Nobody likes being broken up with. So,
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I had David Chase on the show, and we were talking about Sopranos, and I don't think I asked him about the ending, but I did hear what he literally was so tired of it. He's just like, the song I'm going to use, I use the song because it pissed off the crew. And I just cut because there's very few endings to a show that's satisfying. I think Breaking Bad for me was a really great ending. Breaking Bad was a wonderfully satisfying ending to an epic show.
I love Breaking Bad. And those guys have done such a great job with that show that it's hard. But I agree with you. I think that you can count on one hand the number that satisfied everyone. And I guarantee you there are people who are as viscerally upset with the way that Breaking Bad ended as the way that any other show ended, right? Because you're always going to find somebody.
It's always going to. I mean, the best ending of all time is the Bob Newhart show.
Yes,
that's by far the best ending of any television.
There's nobody that has a problem with that. There's nobody that.
I can't. It was what is going? What? It was just amazing, amazing ending to a show. I'm going to ask you a few questions. I ask all my guests, sir. Sure. What advice would you give a filmmaker trying to break into the business today?
Well, I think, the number one thing that people, I think, overlook is, understanding that everybody who is working in the industry now was somebody trying to break into the industry at one point.
Amen. Yep.
And that a lot of people working in, the kind of roles that are one or two levels away from where you will start do not have a fan base. If you're the assistant editor on a show, first of all, you're very findable, which is a little bit terrifying, but it is just the fact of the matter is that, you're in IMDb. And you know what? If I really love a show, I really like the way that it's cut. I really like the way, I can call the editor and I can say, hey, it was really cool, well done. And, if you're in town sometime, we should get lunch. The average film, student is not going to be able to do that. Right. But you know what? You could email the second assistant editor and you could say, hey, I really love your show. Do you have time for coffee? Can we do that? And the funny thing is I tell people to do that all the time. And some people do it and they're successful way more often than you would ever think. Because again, the second assistant editor on the show does not have a fan club. Walter Murch, hard to approach. A genuinely beautiful human being, really nice guy, the oracle of all filmmaking. You can't call Walter, but you know who his second assistant is? I'm not going to tell you, but you could find out. And I'll guarantee you know what? I'm not going to say his name, but he's a very nice guy, super cool guy. If you're in the Bay Area, I'll bet you'd meet you for coffee.
I bet you he'd go out for coffee or dinner or lunch or something like that.
Exactly.
No, and so I found in my years that DPs and editors and production designers and those kind of heads are much easier to get to than you might think. And if they aren't, you're right. The first assistant is, they're much easier to get to if you just want to have a conversation, if you want to network, if you want to, and it isn't it the way it goes? Like it's Sunday night, you need someone for Monday morning, and you're like, do you know anybody who can cut this thing? And you're like, I just met this guy. I think he's been editing for a few years. I think he's available. Do you want me to give him a call?
More than anything, they know that you're not a crazy person. Like if you can go and you can make, and I always say this because, people drill this like, you have to make sure you go to your networking events and then you collect. No. It's like it's like a friggin' business card, collector expo. You know what? Don't collect a single business card. It doesn't matter. Make one meaningful connection with one person, and you've done everything you need to do that night. Like, seriously, if I remember that we had a conversation and that you seemed cool and that you seemed to know what you were talking about and that you were genuinely interested in the stuff that, and nobody's interested in what I do, but if you're a DP or something like that, you're genuinely interested in the work that person does, and not just like, I love Game of Thrones, and like, thank you so much. We're so happy that everybody loves Game of Thrones, and we love you for that. But I have, I can't remember how many people have told me that, but I do remember the people who've said, how did you do those aerial shots in the Battle of the Bastards? I heard you did something with cables, and I mean, I would love to just like, if you have 5 minutes to chat about like how that all worked and like where did you even start sort of thinking about that? You remember the person that you had a little conversation about something that they were actually interested in, something that you actually do. Where they can like pull the work that you do out of the big thing that is this culturally significant sort of show. And
wouldn't it be funny is like, now I'm going to tell everybody, if you want to meet, if you see Stephen anywhere, just ask him, what's workflow? What was the workflow like? What was the post workflow? What was the post workflow like on Game of Thrones? Like, how did you get from the camera to the, if someone walked up to you, and I promise you, you won't forget that guy or gal.
Forget that guy. Yeah. What's your favorite build of smoke? Like, how much time do you have?
Did you work on the montage? What? Like it's
yeah. I'm gonna talk to that person. And that's the thing. It's like, just make one connection, real thing that's not just like, hi, I'm Jim. I just got out of film school and I want to be a cameraman. Like, that's awesome, Jim. Like good luck. Like, go shoot a bunch of stuff and put it on your Instagram and make sure that, you're taking photos and you're showing people what you can do with a camera. And that's kind of all the advice I can give you, I'm probably not going to reach out if I need a camera person, but, like you said, if it's Sunday night and you've got that shoot Monday morning and you're like, at this point, we just need a warm body that's not weird, Right.
Oh, that weird part is so important, and people don't underestimate, like, can I sit in a room with this person for 12 hours and not kill them? Can I be on set with that person? That's so valuable. Talent is talent and experience is experience. But at a certain point, I will take the guy who's a little less experienced, or the gal who hasn't done it as much, for someone who's a pro and a complete ass.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And that's the thing. It's like, you got to realize, like, it's the mob, right? You're with your crew more than you're with your family. And so if you hate the people that you work with, why would you get to choose them? You're going to take someone who maybe is a little greener, that just needs a little bit of help every once in a while. But you know what? They're always there. They're always cool. And not just like, well, they got there and sat in their car for 3 hours before call time, like some kind of a psychopath. Like, no, they're there and you need something, and they're there, and they don't have to read your mind. So many people are like, anticipate everything that could possibly happen on set and have it ready. And like, I don't need you to have friggin' clothespins clipped all over your body. Like, I don't really need them that often. It's just like, just come and be willing to like solve a problem. Like, if you think that you might have something that might solve the problem that we're in right now, like, don't go up to the director and be like, I think if we relight it like this, it'll work. Like, no, but like, talk to your department head, say, hey, you know what? We've been playing with this. Like, I think if you maybe do you want to, it's just an idea. Like, if you want to give it a try, like, we can, I'll help you out there or something. Like, again, if you're cool and you sort of respect the place that you are.
Just be cool. Just be cool. I always, the biggest advice I always got from people, like, what's the biggest advice you can give someone coming into the business? I'm like, don't be a dick. Don't be a dick. That's huge advice. That's huge, and it's too small of a business, man. Look, you and I, we just met, and we know probably a dozen people.
Yeah.
In common, if not more.
Oh, absolutely.
If not more. And we've never met. And if I screwed somebody over somewhere, or I was a dick to somebody along the way, if I would have screwed up Michael back in the day, I'm like, and stormed out and made a scene, you might have seen me walking out like, who the hell's that? I'll never forget. What's that guy's last name? Ferrari? I'll never forget that guy.
I remember that.
Boom.
That guy.
And then years later, it would come to bite me up. It's just, it's too small of a business, man. It is. And it's such a small business, such a small business, man. All right. What is the lesson that took you the longest to learn, whether in the film business or in life?
Well, I think just generally, like, just don't take it so personally. Don't invest so deeply in being upset with whatever it is, right? Like, let it go. You know, of so many, God, I love to stew on something. Like somebody does something that like I don't, and I work in a very large multi-billion-dollar, you know, media conglomerate. So there's always some guy trying to do something that's gonna, you know, well, I want more territory for my department or whatever else, you know.
It's like, The Office. It's The Office. It's like Pirates, but The Office.
It's like Pirates, but you know, The Office. Yeah, it's exactly right. You know, and it's just sort of like the sooner you realize, like, just let it go, man. You know what? Don't stew on it. And I don't know that I've learned that lesson, Alex, honestly. I think that's something I'm still trying to learn is like, you know what? The amount of sleep that I lose over like, you know, somebody trying to like, oh, you do that. You know, it's not worth it. It's never worth it. You know, I think the easiest thing to be is just sort of like, you know what? My fault, moving on. You know, like, let's just, you know what? I don't want to argue about whose fault this is. It's my fault. Okay, fine. Let's go. You know, let's keep going. Let's get through this. Let's get to the next thing.
Will it matter in 5 years?
Yeah. Will it matter in 5 minutes sometimes?
It's like, will it matter in 5 years? Just, you let it process it, let it go through you, and just let it go. Because if not, you're going to, trust me, I was an angry and bitter filmmaker for quite some time.
So easy.
It's so
like the natural state. It's like the natural state
of the creature that is the filmmakers, like the angry and bitter filmmaker. Like, how dare they talk about things that like why haven't they seen my genius yet? This is conversations.
Don't read the online reviews. Don't read the online reviews. It's the same thing. That's an approach you can take to the entire all of life.
Don't care. Ridley Scott has never read one review of his movies, and all he does is just pop out movies left and freaking right. He's like 80.
You know what? They're all great.
He's 82 or 3 years old. It's insane. And last question.
Ridley Scott does not give a shit. He does not give a shit about you. You know what? Your online review that you're writing about Ridley Scott does not give a shit about you.
He did not give a crap when he was 40. Do you think he gives a crap when he's 82?
That's exactly right.
He's every minute that passes. Every one of those filmmakers are getting a minute older and giving less of a shit about what you think.
Exactly right. We should all live that way.
I mean, unfortunately, you don't have to wait till you're 80 to do it. But like, I can tell you is, and you as well, I give a lot less crap about stuff that I did when I was in my 20s.
Yeah, it all doesn't matter as much as you think. A great film on that topic, film called Brick. From the 1990s.
Yeah, of course.
Like a murder, like a noir.
That was
mystery.
Oh God, who's the guy who did last?
Yeah.
Ryan Johnson.
Ryan Johnson, yes, of course, yeah. So you look at that movie, and it really is about like these are high school kids, and admittedly something sort of dire happens, but it's like, what if the one thing that happened in your high school was the biggest thing that ever happened in the entire world? And that's sort of like the thesis of that film, and I think it's just so great because everybody is so invested at this being like, you know, just this amazingly life-changing sort of level-setting sort of, and it's just, I think it's good. It's like, well, in our own, like I talk to my daughter who's 7, and you talk about the things that she does in school, and like they're as important to her as the thing that I did today on a show that 9 million people are going to watch. So, you know, it's like, but to her, that's her world. That's everything she knows. And so it is just important to her. And you have to sort of just take yourself out. Remember how big the planet Earth is in our galaxy. And give yourself a little perspective every once in a while. You know, nothing we do matters.
Nothing we do matters. And I know way more than I need to know about my daughter's social circles, and all the drama that happens on the daily basis.
The meetings that are happening.
Oh my God! God! It's like he said this to me. He did this to me. She did that to me. Can you believe that this is happening? I'm like, I don't need that to fill my brain. It's kind of like my wife who would be watching a show or someone said something about Star Wars and she's like, no, that's a Padawan. Why do I know that? This is your fault, Alex. I don't need that in my head. Why do I know about a Padawan?
That's right. I'm sure my wife feels the same way about vintage Land Rover ownership. She's like, you know, why do I know? I don't even want to know that, but I do, and it makes me angry. Yeah.
She knows what a green
that's
screen
what we do to the people we love.
She knows what a green screen is and what a bad comp is now. And she's like,
and you're the same way, Alex, I'm sure, but like none of our family members can watch anything with us because we're just like, ooh, that's an unmotivated light. Like, what are they doing? Where's the light coming from the floor, guys? Like, how didn't we not catch? They're just, I'm just trying to watch the show. Shut up. Yeah.
Wow, that is the best lit interior car in the middle of nowhere. Like, where is this light coming from?
Where's that coming from, huh? Ooh, bad matte line there. Got a little bit of a power window there still, eh, boys?
Oh, I've seen that. I've seen that. Oh, God, I've seen that on big shows. I've seen the power window just like fly by, and I'm like, oh, God, how did that pass QC? Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. Just stop it. I'm just trying to watch the show.
And last question, 3 of your favorite films of all time.
3 of my favorite films of all time. Number 1 favorite film is Ghostbusters, not for the reason you think, but because a bunch of nerdy scientists saved the world.
Amen.
And I think that that at a time in my life where the idea of being very deeply into technology and gadgets and making things was not exactly the most popular thing in
it was pre-Big Bang. It was pre-Big Bang
or whatever.
Big Bang Theory. Pre-Big Bang Theory.
Nerds were not cool, and all of a sudden you have 3 deeply nerdy, and not for the same reason. Not everybody was Egon. Not everybody was the glasses pushing nerd, but Bill Murray, deeply unpopular, antisocial person, and you have all these amazing characters, and they end up saving the world. And I think that was a pivotal film in for me, and I still watch it a lot.
Oh, so good.
Watch it a lot.
So good.
And so and I'll pick non-traditional films. What Dreams May Come, which is
amazing film.
A Robin Williams film. I think it was from a visual I use the word visual language a lot because I'm an artsy studio executive that uses fluffy dumb words. But the visual language of What Dreams May Come, it established that concept for me. That picture told such a deeply sad, such a rich, textured story by just looking at it. You could look at 20 stills from that movie, almost pulled from anywhere, and it tells an incredible story. Cinematography was beautiful. Acting was haunting.
The visual effects, they won the VFX
Absolutely,
Oscar.
they did. The walking through a painting, the paint being
sticking onto, like, what did he? I mean, It was a little film too. It's not a film that's like talked about a lot, and it should be. It's one of my favorite Robin Williams films. It's I mean, obviously postmortem, it's even more amazing to watch now and more tragic to watch a film like that. But the visuals of that film are oh my God, the story it gets me every time.
It's an amazing story. And I think, and again, and of course, we'll just check all the film school kid boxes of like, of course, Kurosawa, of course, all of that
Kubrick,
stuff. But I think probably Close Encounters was for me, the last, if I had to pick 3 movies that really matter to me, Close Encounters is one I watch all the time. I watched it at a time in my life where it was awe-inspiring and amazing, and the visual effects were incredible, but they were subtle. And it felt like this could really happen. And they blended into the story in a way where, you're not even sure if is this guy just crazy? Is this real? Is this happening? And then later in life, I went to see it, and I see it all the time, and I sort of realized it's actually like a story about Richard Dreyfuss losing his mind and abandoning his family. And turning away from
he literally leaves his family. He leaves his family.
And that scene is tough to watch now. I mean, having
kids,
obviously having a family, seeing Richard Dreyfuss overcome by this sort of mania, this manic state where his wife and child leave in a panic because he's shoveling dirt through the window of their home, like all of this sort of stuff. It's a great film, and it's a perfect sort of exploration of that genre of the 70s 80s adventure movie. What's happening? But then also it's funny because my wife and I went and saw the remastered version of it just recently, and I sort of said, hey, have you I didn't get to see this movie in the theaters. This is so cool that we get to go see it in this big, I've seen it several times, but this remastered version is fantastic. And I said, sort of what's your favorite part of Close Encounters? And she said, I think that it's it's probably the tentacle part, the water tentacle thing, and it becomes the people's faces. Like, that was pretty cool. And I said, oh, well,
that's the abyss.
Yeah, that's the abyss. So have you seen Close Encounters? He said, oh, what's it about? I'm sort of, Richard Dreyfuss, these aliens, and they're communicating with people in this lyrical thing, and they're making this mountain. Do you remember that? No, I don't think I've ever seen that. And it was sort of like, and then I realized, like, oh my God, you're about to see Close Encounters of the Third Kind
For the first time.
And you're going to see it
on the big screen,
like a 40%. Right now, like seriously, like the hairs are standing up on my neck. Like, you're going to see the most amazing version that anybody has ever seen of this movie that is like absolutely transformative. And you're going to see it for the first time. And like, oh my God, that's going to be so great for you. And it was, and she loves it. It was an amazing movie. And it was a great screening. We had a wonderful time. And yeah, so I think that movie, anyways, those three. Can't wait for the new Ghostbusters. Jason Reitman is exactly the right person to be carrying on this.
It looks good.
So happy, can't wait, and so looking very forward to strapping on my Proton Pack and heading to the theater for Ghostbusters.
My friend, I appreciate you coming on the show. This has been an epic conversation of geeking out. It's been a lot of geek. If anyone's still with us, thank you. We appreciate you hanging in there. I told you at the beginning, this is what you were going to get, and you got it. So hopefully it inspired a few people to look over. If you're looking for a job, I think HBO's taking people, so you never know.
We're always taking people. We want to radicalize you to the HBO way of doing things. We want the best people. We want the best people doing the best work here with us. So please, if you are a filmmaker, if you are interested in getting into the industry, don't overlook us. We want the best people doing the best work. And
mention that you heard about it on the Indie Film Hustle podcast. That's a really quick way to get the job. I'm just throwing that out there. Quick way.
Alex gets you can use his offer code. That's right. When you apply for a job, use Indie Film Hustle 21 when applying for a job to save 10%.
To save 10% and to get fast-tracked into a position.
All right, brother. Well, hey, I appreciate the time. Thank you. This is immensely entertaining, super fun. I love it, and happy to come back and talk about anything anytime.
Thank you, my friend.